Donald Trump is walking himself into a trap in a case that he filed regarding Epstein files, specifically the case Donald Trump filed against the Wall Street Journal, a report that they did about a letter that they allege Donald Trump sent to Epstein for his 50th birthday, the birthday card where Donald Trump talked about enigmas never aging and we'll keep these secrets, or words to that effect. And Trump's like, I never sent that letter. It's a total fabrication. I guess there was a time traveler in the future that went back and planted the letter in the Epstein files, and the estate was able to keep this time travel fake manufactured letter or something like that. But we all know now, we reported on the MeidasTouch network, that a federal judge dismissed the initial complaint that Donald Trump filed against the Wall Street Journal, where Trump alleges defamation. And the court said, as a matter of law, you did not plead that you have awareness that the Wall Street Journal acted with actual malice in their reporting. I mean, the way you describe it, it doesn't meet the threshold legal standard. And for purposes of a motion to dismiss, although this may sound odd to people who, aren't entrenched in these legal standards, you have to accept the allegations as true that are in the initial complaint. And what the federal judge said is, even if I accept your allegations as true, Donald Trump, you don't meet the actual malice standard. But what the court said, and this is a feature of our legal system, for better or for worse, the first time a court dismisses your complaint, unless there is like a statute of limitations thing or something like that, the court will usually grant what's called leave to amend. And the law says that leave to amend will be granted liberally, meaning it's supposed to be given by a judge at least the first time where your complaint gets dismissed. The problem is that's supposed to deal with maybe people who miss a technical aspect, and the court doesn't want to mistake or exalt form over substance. And if your complaint's there, the court doesn't want to just throw out meritorious cases just because maybe a small thing was missed and you could address it. That's the theory behind a liberal right, as it's called, for leave to amend, or that it's granted freely, usually the first time. It's for that reason. But some litigants like Donald Trump abuse it, where they really don't have a case, in my opinion. And so they just utilize it to drag out the clock and then say, okay, we're going to spend all this time filing the initial complaint. We'll ask for all of these extensions of time. And then when the court finally dismisses it, we'll then file a first amended complaint. That'll take a long time to be heard. So from the filing of a complaint until a case becomes at issue, where a court finally makes a ruling, either the case can proceed or dismiss, if you are a litigant and you want to game the system in a federal court, you can make that last around 12 to 18 months, asking for extensions and doing things like that. That's one of the things that Trump does. It's actually similar to his strategy with kind of international affairs, where just drag things out long, and then hope people just kind of forget about it, or it just goes away. And, and oftentimes when Trump does that internationally, I don't mean to deviate from this, you drag something out long enough and it's like North Korea. Kim Jong-un has nuclear weapons at this point in his ballistic missile test, because he just lets the issue fade. And in a litigation sense, so he lets it fade. He'll lose the cases, but then not a lot of people talk about it because it's 2 years from when the complaint is filed and so much other drama happened. And anyway, why did I start this video off by saying Donald Trump seems to be setting a trap? Because as soon as he lost the Wall Street Journal case, but leave to amend was given to him or granted to him, he said, I'm going to refile this case. Now, Wall Street Journal has the most basic tool available, which is you just ask for Donald Trump's deposition. I understand the reflex of companies or people who get sued by Donald Trump, who know the case is without merit, to file motions to dismiss and say, as a legal matter, Trump can't even make the threshold claims for this to even be a case. But I'll tell you the strategy I would employ if Trump ever sued me. I would answer the complaint, even if I would win the motion to dismiss. I would say, okay, answer, let's go to trial. Let's do it. Why don't you show up in front of a jury and you could explain the story about your relationship to Epstein and how there are time travelers in the future? Why don't we do that? Why don't we make this a very public thing? Okay. And in fact, before that step, because I'm not filing motions to dismiss, which usually stay or pause discovery, not always, but in federal court it frequently does, why don't I ask for Donald Trump's deposition? And because you're now suing me on matters relating to Epstein, I'm going to ask all of the questions about Epstein to you. We'll spend 7 hours just on Epstein, and we'll go through all of your statements also about women and girls, and we'll go through all your statements that you made. That'll be the whole purpose, and all of that will be allowed because it's clearly reasonably calculated to lead to the discovery of admissible evidence, and we will we'll just go through all that information. We'll go through all that evidence together. What do you think about that, Donald? And so as Donald Trump says, I'm going to refile it. I understand that, I guess, with Murdoch owning the Wall Street Journal and having this still cozy relationship with Donald, that they're going to approach it from this legal detente, if you will, standoff. But the trap that Donald Trump sets is this thing. Let's just say Donald Trump uses more like magic words now in the complaint, and he says actual malice more, and he goes, this was fabricated by the Wall Street Journal. This was a time traveler from the future who did it. This is not a real document. Okay, well, now you open all of this up to discovery, and let's do it. And I just think that part he hasn't gotten challenged enough on. When he sat for depositions, he's terrible. I mean, the E. Jean Carroll depositions, the worst. The depositions from New York Attorney General Letitia James, the worst. I want to bring in Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Substack, and podcast. Harry, to me, therein is the basic plan. And you know who implemented it, ironically, of all people? Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was sued by Donald Trump. People forget this one. A few years back, Michael Cohen said, okay, I want your deposition. Donald Trump's like, nope. Cohen went to the federal judge. I want his deposition. Judge is like, yep, you get his deposition. Trump is like, okay. Then the deposition date was approaching. Trump said, I need an extension. The judge said, okay, I'll give you an extension. We'll move it. Let's find another date. Cohen set the date again. Donald Trump the day before shows up and the judge says, you're going to show up? Trump goes, no. Okay, I'm busy. Okay, one more extension. And then the court gives a warning. You miss the next deposition, this case gets dismissed. Donald Trump waits until hours before the deposition. Cohen's basically ready to go. Trump doesn't show up. He dismisses the case without prejudice, so he claims he can refile it, but then doesn't show up for the deposition. To me, that's actually the roadmap of what you do in a situation. What do you make of it all, Harry?
And it's even stronger here, Ben, because Trump is the plaintiff. It is an absolutely essential deposition that he has no possibility of trying to resist. Look, let's get to the actual problem with the case. The judge has really done Trump a big favor, but I don't think he's going to be wise enough to recognize it. He files this complaint as soon as the report comes out about this drawing. And you remember the drawing? It's salacious. Tee-hee. Besides being a little gross, it obviously evinces knowledge of Epstein as something to do with women. And Trump immediately, as Trump does, reflexively calls it a lie and sues Wall Street Journal for defamation, doubles down as he does. And it's after that the estate produces the 50th birthday book with all the pages, including Trump's right in the middle where it should be. And Ghislaine Maxwell collected it, making it what already was clear. They also have done handwriting analysis and the like, newspapers have. Of course, Trump wrote this. The hole in the middle of the case is as big as the case itself, because he's suing, saying that not only did they purposely know it was false, but it was false. And any examination of the facts is going to show that it's true and it is his, and certainly could not possibly show, as he would need to, the plaintiff bearing the burden, that it in fact was not really his drawing. Forget about it. And by the way, Wall Street Journal is very smart. They phrased it very adroitly, so they don't even exactly say that he was the one who drew it. But you're 100% right. So the judge gives him a way out. The complaint, if you look at it, is just completely full of allegations of terrible malice, as we use the word normally, by the Wall Street Journal against Trump. But it actually fails, and it's by, I'm not an expert on Florida law, but a lawyer down there who I've never heard of. And it's not a really well put together complaint. And what it's missing in particular, there's regular malice, like, someone's malicious, but they don't have this particular constitutional standard from New York Times versus Sullivan that they knew it was false and they did it anyway, or they were recklessly indifferent. Now, it's child's play to just reinsert a paragraph saying that, but that means then Trump is exactly where you say he is. He must be deposed. He's the plaintiff. And by the way, the complaint itself, you say anything calculated to find relevant evidence, it's stronger here because the complaint itself puts a whole sheaf in a footnote of articles that they say kind of took off after the Wall Street Journal and made all these allegations about Trump and Epstein. So you just sit there with each article one after the other and say, so it says here that that he called you his wingman. Is that true or false? And, one after the other. So it becomes just a huge 7 hours showing, without regard to any kind of crime or whatever, just their the so-called bromance, wingman relationship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And that would be politically toxic, to say the least. So Trump is total, again, when he did it, he reflexively wanted to call it false. Now everyone knows that was a lie. And in fact, the Wall Street Journal and the picture really happened and was drawn by Trump almost certainly. And that's what goes front and center. But the way the judge necessarily wrote this, Trump could try to have boasting rights and said, well, the judge just found a little technical defect, as you're putting it, and we can easily remedy that. And it's true. But then you have to, as the phrase goes, face facts. And those facts will kill him here. And the related facts of everything he's done with Epstein will kill him worse. So were he to pursue it at this point, he'd be, I think the legal term might be imbecile. Nevertheless, if past is prologue, that's just what we will see. And he's just, doesn't know the rule of holes. He's going to keep digging, likely. He has said so, even though he should run for the hills now that he's been given a chance to sort of do it with honor. Well, the judge dismissed it, and that's the end of that case, etc.
Harry Litman runs the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds Substack, and Talking Feds podcast. Everybody subscribe to all of the Harry Litman Talking Feds channels. Specifically now, search Talking Feds on YouTube. Thanks, Harry.
Hey, thanks, Ben.
Everybody subscribe to our channel here as well. Thanks for watching. Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.